It's actually quite unlike anything we've ever seen before.
A giant, hairy creature, part ape, part man.
In Loch Ness, a 24-mile-long bottomless lake in the Highlands of Scotland. It's a creature known as the Loch Ness Monster.
MonsterTalk.
Good evening, good morning, or good afternoon, depending on where you are in the world. This is Monster Talk Live. Welcome to the show. It is Sunday, July 26th. I am Karen Stolzno.
I'm Blake Smith, and welcome to the Apollo 13 of podcasting.
That was not a good Apollo, was it? Doggone it.
It was an Oscar-winning Apollo mission.
But also, like, it's the one that successfully made me not a skeptic anymore. I believe that dark forces are at work trying to stop us from actually connecting.
And so we've got a special guest tonight with us, Brian Brushwood. So welcome to the show.
Dude, so excited to be here. Yeah, finally.
I thought you were an escape artist. How'd you still get here?
You know what? I almost escaped last week this obligation. I'm very good at escaping obligations. Awesome. But for anybody who doesn't know, for coming on 12 years now, I've taught magic on the internet under the names Scam School and then Scam Nation. I did a National Geographic show called Hacking the System, and nowadays most people know me as one half of the team on The Modern Rogue, where we're trying to be the ultimate gentleman warrior scoundrel. Basically, if James Bond, Houdini, and MacGyver all had a baby, we're trying to learn all the skills that baby would know. So we're babies, is what I'm saying.
I love your product lines too. I love the escape ring, especially.
Mm-hmm. Cool
it's been a lot of fun to find quirky stuff like the ring you're talking about is one that has a serrated shim on the inside that allows you to escape from police issued handcuffs or saw your way through zip ties. But the fun part is once you discover something like that, trying to figure out okay, well, how do we make it even more special? So we etch it and engrave it with 23 symbols. Each of them are basically crib notes for a different bar or scam trick you could do for your friends. But that's all it's scam stuff, which is where the Modern Rogue idea was born.
Oh, cool. And I think you've actually had to use that for the purposes of getting away from police, haven't you?
Handcuffs and police are not necessarily tied together.
we try to make it real clear that this is for escaping pirate robot ninjas. That's all.
Whatever. Yeah, exactly. Right. So whatever accidents you may get into in your bedroom, whatever,
So I was told this is a drinking podcast, right?
Absolutely. What are you drinking?
I almost went over because one of my producer editors likes the light beers, so we do have Corona, but that felt too on the nose.
We all have Corona.
Yeah, exactly, right. So, but because this is Monster Talk, I got from right here in Dripping Springs. Chupa Hopera.
Did you just point to your crotch when you said Dripping Springs? Did you do that?
Yeah, right here.
Yeah, right. But so I'm doing Chupa Hopera.
That's nice. That's very nice.
So cool.
Yeah.
Have you tried that, Blake?
I have not. Now, are you near Austin?
Oh yeah. Like right. We're midway between. We're Southwest Austin. As a matter of fact, literal Austin city limits is the street that our headquarters is based on, which is nice because we get all of the benefits of being in Austin. But permitting gets way easy on this 30 feet of the side of the street because we're technically outside of the city.
Nice.
What's traffic like there? Yeah. Is it better?
Oh my gosh.
No traffic.
I would know. I have no place to go anymore. There's only two places that exist, headquarters and home.
Yeah, I love Austin. I mean, they've got the Museum of the Weird. They've got the Minnesota Iceman there. They got the Chupacabra Bar right there on 6th Street.
Oh, that's right.
And then my favorite American. Yes. And then you got Houndstooth Coffee, which a little pricey, but delicious.
Great coffee shop.
Did you see how I missed the chef kiss and just pulled my own beard? That was awesome.
Ouch. So what are you drinking, Blake? Your usual?
I'm having a Moscow Mule with Svedka, which is a very reasonably priced and mild vodka. Mild in flavor, but plenty of alcohol. I think I just threw some in the air. So, all right.
Cheers.
The Moscow Mule reminds me of one of my favorite hidden spots in Austin. Is there's a speakeasy that I won't say what the inside name is, but
because it's hard to say.
You can figure it out. But on the
hard.
outside, it just presents itself as a floppy disk repair company.
Nice.
So, and so you're going down, 5th Street, and you see floppy disk repair company. You're like, what is this place? And then there's a keypad, and you either know the code or you don't, and that's it.
That's awesome.
I'm gonna check every one of those places next time I'm there.
Yeah.
May we all get to Austin someday again. So
May any of us ever leave the house again.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not bad here. I like my family.
For the first 3 months.
I'll tell you what, man, I kind of dig, because like all the time that I would normally have to spend ferrying, the children around, like that's a good 3 or 4 hours a day. We just spend it goofing off. And then there's this moment where it's like, yeah, that's enough of that. And then I go to work, and then I'm like, I feel lonely. I want to go back to my family, and then I go back home. So
nice.
it's a pretty good gig.
It is nice.
So I don't even know where to start talking with you, Brian, because you have done so much. But I thought we could maybe go back to when you went to university. And I think that's where you first encountered skepticism and pseudoscience with a course that you did. Can you tell us a little bit about that course that really influenced you?
Yeah. So age of 18, the one thing I knew for sure is I didn't know for sure what I wanted to do. And
still don't.
Yeah, right. It turns out that lucky enough, University of Austin at Texas has a program called Plan 2, and it is a true liberal arts degree. Very few people know about it. It's very, very highly selective. They only bring in like 150 students, and they get like 2,000 applicants every year. The program is designed so that the first 2 years, they pretty much tell you everything you have to take. And then the last 2 years, you pick a thesis. It's one of the few undergraduate programs where you have to have a thesis to graduate, but you have complete free reign on what you're going to take from that point forward. And when I came, just by pure coincidence, I discovered magic from a friend of mine just before I showed up, and picked it up as a hobby over the first 2 years while I'm taking all the default classes that you have to take. I started working professionally, semi-professionally as a magician, doing a little bit of touring, putting together a 30-minute show. And at the time, I thought that I would pull a fast one on the university, because everybody else is like, their theses were 300-page treatises on this guy or their first novel, and I'm like, man, all of that looks really hard. I want to do something that'll be easy. And so I went to the dean's office, and they're like, so what are you thinking of doing? And I wanted to maybe write a history of magic thing, or maybe get a one trick published or something. It's like, hey, I'm doing quote unquote magic as my study. And I got as far as saying the words, well, for the last couple of years, I've been doing magic on the side. And then the dean goes, and you want to do a magic show as a creative writing thesis? What a great idea. And I was like, you've got to be freaking kidding me. And so I just nodded. I was like, that's what I was thinking. She's like, oh, well, this is great. And it turns out that the class that brought me to skepticism, because I even after starting magic, and understanding the tools of deception, there were so many things that I hadn't yet learned about, like the malleability of memory, or the construction of a pseudoscience, or how to understand what is and isn't good evidence for things. There's a class, Physics 341 at the University of Texas at Austin, that's taught by Dr. Rory Coker, and it blew my mind. It was like week 1 astrology. And it was all about, it turns out that the best way to debunk all pseudosciences is to accurately tell the story of every pseudoscience, and then at some point you're like, well, I don't know why I would believe that. So astrology, and there was also never a test. Instead, you had assignments. For example, an assignment was fake a really good UFO photo. And you were graded on how good of a fake UFO photo you brought in, or design a pseudoscience form of divination. Mine was on like a pseudopsychological breakdown of the order in which you shaved parts of your face meant something about what you were really thinking or whatever. So
that like bladomancy.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So loved the class so much that I actually audited it a second time. I got my friends to take it, and so he ended up being my sponsor for the thesis. And basically, for the last 2 years, I took whatever classes seemed related to magic. I took psychology. There was a class called History of Witchcraft. There's one, of pseudoscience and the paranormal. I took a linguistics course called Languages of Science Fiction, breaking down all of the ways, the cheats that writers have used. And all along the way, my real gig was to every week show up with another VHS tape of like, hey, here's the gig that I did on the street corner. And Dr. Coker was like, yeah, looks good. and then finally I did a show at the end and got an A. And time one on the university, like, oh my God, all these suckers are doing hard work and writing. And I'm the only person I know who ended up working exactly in their field after graduation.
Wow. Yeah, that's an interesting point. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you get to really use this stuff in real life. I think you came to Kennesaw State University, and I saw you there, I think, for the first time live. And
oh my God, that was the show. That was the show that we had a very bad, disastrous breakdown of what is otherwise a very good illusion.
Yes. And then I missed seeing the trick. I know exactly what you're talking about. And then I saw you again at Dragon Con, and I was going to see the trick executed properly. And then I had to leave. But it's a trick where you use people's phones for part of the effect.
You know what's funny is it's been long enough now that that I don't mind like spilling the tea on how that worked. There was actually, I was reading
probably we should describe what the trick is, right?
So
now it would be interesting, I think, for me to describe it, having failed to see it work once and missing it completely except for the intro the second time. It's something to do with ghosts.
Exactly. It's even more fun when you find out where it all came from, because I was in Germany doing a tour of military bases for their morale program during the Iraq War. So I'm doing fire eating and teaching kids magic tricks and all that stuff. And I was reading a newsletter from the JREF, James Randi Educational Foundation. And the question from an engineer was, hey, orbs. When you snap a photo, sometimes you get orbs around. As an engineer, if it's a cell phone, oftentimes they use cheap CCDs to capture light, and they cheat by borrowing light outside of the visible part of the spectrum. So maybe infrared has something to do with it. And James Randi is like, that's very interesting. Thank you. And so meanwhile, I remember sitting in my room in Germany. And I grabbed my cell phone and I grabbed the remote control, pointed it at the phone, and I was like, sure enough, I couldn't see anything with my eyes, but plain as day on the phone, this big purple flashing light was happening. I was like, I wonder if there's anything that could be done with that. And I was like, maybe we could like project an infrared. I don't know, like somebody picks a card and then it appears over the shoulder or whatever. It's like, something more emotionally charged. And it's like, wait, what if it's a face? Oh my God. Okay, so maybe there's a haunted videotape, and we're going to use infrared to blast at 2,000, 3,000 watts of a big bright infrared face that you won't be able to see. And it's like, wait, but how do you end the routine? And it's like, oh. And so basically the way the routine came together was I tell a ghost story, about a dude who doesn't exist. I talk about a videotape that I play that has some static and seems mysterious. And it's like, did anybody see anything weird? No. Well, the couple who recorded that swear that they took a picture of their with their camera and they saw a face. So everybody pull out your camera phone. And by the way, everybody is all packed together up at the front of the stage, kind of creating this like mosh pit environment. So everybody is cozied up and you feel that electricity. And this time when it plays, they're watching exact same footage, only they see on their phone, they see this haunting evil face. But they see nothing with their eyes. And so at this point, either you saw the face and you have genuine goosebumps, or you didn't see it and you want to know what you missed. So I say, here's the weird part. If you play the tape backwards, you can actually see the face. So I play the tape backwards and it's doing creepy backwards sounds and all that stuff. And the tension is building and people are leaning in. And then we do that internet sucker punch screamer trick of having a big scary face show up, jump up. And this is back when that still was pretty novel.
It was a simpler time.
Correct. Man, people would literally want to punch me afterwards. It was a very, very good routine. But the night you were there, the infrared filter, because the way to create it, we had to get like 4 super hot, super incandescent bulbs, and on top of that, instead of the regular reflectors that let the heat pass out, we used metal bowls to push all the heat forward, because infrared is heat energy. And so we had all of these, but the show you happen to be at, everybody cozied up, and somebody, their knee just pushed one of the IR filters off to the side. So the version of the show you saw was, I told this whole story and I was like, I don't know, maybe there'll be a face. And then at some point, a bright 3,000 watt, clearly projected, scary ghost face showed up on the screen. That was amazing.
When you were saying, when you were talking about something going wrong, I was concerned you were going to be talking about the human crazy straw. Oh. And I thought, you wouldn't want that to go wrong, or has that gone wrong before? I mean, that's one of your signature.
Sure.
Illusions.
Yeah, the human crazy straw is basically there's in magic and Carney talk they call it the mental floss, and usually it's done with a half inflated. One of those long, skinny balloons. Basically, to be honest, it's like a COVID test. Basically, you run it up your nose, you reach back, and you pull it out your mouth, and it's like, look at that, it's up my nose and out my mouth. And I was trying to think of a way to make that bigger, and so I was like, well, what if we had 30 feet of tubing, and what if we actually ran a liquid through everything? And but I first had to learn the original mental floss gimmick, and I believe I was 20 years old at the time, on tour with an illusionist and his assistant, who would later become my wife, and his big promoter and his 15-year-old son. We went to Bennigan's. If that tells you how long ago it was. Yeah.
So this was the 90s, you say?
Yeah. It was. But it's like, let's have drinks back at the room. We go back to the room or whatever. And keep in mind, this is the illusionist. His name was C.J. Johnson. You know, this is a big deal for him. And there comes this moment where he's like, hey, you want to show him that balloon trick you've been working on? I'm like, oh, that's a great idea. 6 beers in. And so I run out and I get the balloon and I inflate it and I make the joke about how it looks like sperm or whatever. And then meanwhile, the promoter's like, what is this? What's going on? And his son is like, what? Wait. And they're like, don't worry, this is going to be cool. This is going to be cool. And so I start, to insert it in my nose, and they're like, I don't, and it's going farther and farther in, and they're leaning in with more and more tension. And then I reach back to grab the balloon, trigger my gag reflex, and puke all over myself. At which point, the best part is, Bonnie knows that's not how it was supposed to go. CJ knows that's not how it was supposed to go. the promoter and his son, as far as they know, that's how the trick goes, I guess. and I am realizing the irony of what is just happening, and I collapse into a fit of laughter like a totally insane person, cuddled up in the corner, covered in my own vomit, with a giant balloon sticking out of my mouth and my nose, just rocking back and forward, unable to breathe for a good 2 minutes.
The early internet sensation, one guy, one balloon.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, right, exactly.
That's the thing. When you said the balloon trick, it just sounds so innocuous, like you're going to turn balloons into an animal or something.
Yeah, we turned it into something, that's for sure.
Nice.
Oh boy.
But later, that was one of the early original Bizarre Magic tricks that I put together for the stage show when I was taking it on tour. We ended up doing it on the Tonight Show with Jay Leno, and man, I'll never forget that rehearsal because Incubus is doing their sound check over here, playing their new single, and we get halfway through doing it. And there's something about the way the tubes are aligned that there's not enough pressure. And so basically the milk winds about halfway and then stops. And so there's well, let's try it again. And then it worked the second time, but it's like, I'm going into this live appearance on the Tonight Show, which again means a little bit less now than it did 20 years ago. At the time, it was the biggest deal in the world.
Yeah, it wasn't a Zoom show back then.
That's right. They had a studio. It was. If you've ever seen the Larry Sanders Show, you might know what it looked like. But there's this moment when you go back and you look at the ancient footage from 2003 that I have to strike this pose and wait, and I don't get to know whether or not it's working. And there's this moment that I feel the coolness of the milk go across my forehead, and you can watch me fight a smile because I'm I'm like, I did it. I Icarus'd my way through this. Take that, son.
Nice.
So you're talking about bizarre magic, and so that is your particular breed of magic that you've been doing for decades now. What is that? And can you tell us a little bit about the history of that kind of magic?
Sure. It's actually a bit of a misappropriation of the term. The same way before David Blaine, if you said street magic, performers knew that what you were talking about was busking. You're talking about gathering a crowd, building the tip, as we called it, getting enough people excited, delivering enough value, and then passing the hat and collecting money or whatever. What he called street magic, magicians knew as close-up magic. This is all stuff that you would buy at the local magic shop, and magicians grumbled, including yours truly. I sadly have to admit I was one of the haters at the time, but now that all my friends work with him, I think he's cool. but I was like, well, I don't want to say what I'm doing is a magic show because half of what I'm doing is sideshow or geek magic. It's stuff designed specifically to build tension and make you cringe, like the human blockhead where you hammer a 4.5-inch nail in your nose, or fire eating, or straitjacket escape, that stuff. And then the other half is comedy magic and mentalism. But the more adjectives that you add, the more people stop listening to whatever you have to say. We in the
South would call, "Hey, y'all, watch this."
Right? Yeah, exactly. Right. Actually, that'd be a great name for a show. Hey, y'all, no, I mean it. I'm going to do this. So now in the world of magicians, bizarre magic, just like close-up magic, already had a meaning. Bizarre magic is usually, essentially, you tell a ghost story and then you find their card. And there's some great bizarre magicians out there. There's a book by Christian Shellman who would go out of his way to buy at very high prices actual artifacts from history. He has, and he would tell a story that he would explain at the beginning, like, hey, I've got some stuff I want to show you, but you got to treat it nicely. So do me a favor, wear these curator's gloves. And so puts on curator's gloves and then hands over a postcard and has them like, do me a favor, read that postcard. And it's a postcard, oh, my dear love, I hope to see you soon, whatever. And he's like, turn it over. And it's from the Hindenburg, and it's an actual artifact of from the past, right? And then he goes on to tell another story about when this happened and what happened to this imaginary person or whatever. And then the story ends with them dying in a concentration camp in Germany or Auschwitz or whatever. And then the last part he says, do me a favor, look at those gloves. And then you look down and you're wearing an SS trooper's gloves. And that's what he's, and it's something so emotionally impactful that it disturbs people for years to come. So that's what bizarre magic is supposed to mean. But I needed a word that wouldn't let me get confused, that wouldn't get me booked at any kids magic shows. So I appropriated unfairly bizarre magic for the name of what I was doing.
Yeah. Well, I do know someone who's doing that kind of magic now and must be influenced by that person because his show involves people who were on the Titanic. So that's kind of interesting now to hear about that background.
Oh, sure. I mean, and the DNA of bizarre magic has always been just like, what if magic had good stories associated with it? Instead of what if magic began with the phrase other than, on my travels to India, I once happened upon this enchanted box.
Nice. Yeah. So, no, I think first, obviously I saw you first at the university, but I also know that like for a while you did Scam School and it's
still do.
It's Scam Nation now?
Scam Nation,
yeah. Well, we had to do a pivot because Scam School was the project as I pitched it to Revision 3, which later got bought by Discovery, became Discovery Digital. Now it's part of Group 9 Productions.
Wow.
And we got shuffled around a lot. But the idea was always very simple. In fact, you'll notice the first 3 or 4 years, I personally, I feel like when it comes to teaching something, it's very important that you not admit what you're really up to. So we never used the M word. We never said the word magic. Instead, what we did is we said, this is a show about being the most interesting person in the room, about getting free drinks, getting the girl's phone number, being the raconteur of choice at no matter where you are, you're going to know all the tips and tricks to be the coolest guy around. Secretly, we were teaching basic fundamentals of magic, but we would never admit that.
But you've given it a vector, you've given it a framing, right.
And so later, years later, we moved production to Austin. We took over. We produce everything in house now, and at some point, it's like it became clear that it's like, okay, can we evolve and be something more? And I had this brilliant idea that I would buy 7 acres of a former cult compound and ground zero for one of the biggest satanic panic stories in Texas history. And that I would make it like an awesome bed and breakfast and start inviting all of magic's best and brightest to come out because after 10 11 years.
I also have to interrupt to say I love it that it's one of Texas's biggest satanic panics.
Only one of many.
It was a panic. They were all over the place. I get that. Yeah. So
actually, maybe we could talk about that because I don't think we've ever revealed where this place is and what the story is. And this does seem like the right place to do it. But anyway, we got everything up and running. We got 20 magicians booked. So excited because finally I could lean on other people to write material because I was reading so many books from over 100 years ago. We're trying to figure out how to take 2 gentlemen's cummerbunds and replace them with beer cans and somehow make a trick work, right? And then coronavirus happened, and so it's just like I give up. I full on give up. And so
escape from this, Brushwood.
here's what we did is the way we escaped is 3 months ago. I just went to my 12-year-old and I'm like, hey, you just want to be on the show? I'll teach you some stuff. and if you told me 10 years ago that the show was going to become me looking dad as hell, being dad as hell, teaching a 12-year-old fundamentals of magic, I'd be all like, I'll kill this project before it even begins. But instead, we've gotten started and just everybody loves it. And I think there are two types of people who love it. They either love it because they can't believe this is the crazy spiky haired guy that they've been following for 12 years and he's dad as hell, or they're just discovering it and they're all like, seems like a cool guy. I don't know. The kid's kind of funny. But the nice thing is it gives me the opportunity to revisit so many of the stuff that we had written in the early days of the show. So we're evolving. Eventually, I want Scam Nation to feel more like Penn and Teller's Fool Us, where it's like this unending parade of magic's best and brightest. Like, imagine Fool Us if somebody came on, did their top-notch material, and instead of what we have right now, which is Penn and Teller speaking a bunch of code words that make everything Googleable.
We know how you did that. How? No, it doesn't matter.
Right. Let me just say, my old friend, Dr. the Professor Ningelheim knows, wink. And then everybody goes and Googles whatever that is. Like, imagine if, because it's on the internet and because the channel is meant to teach magic, they could go straight into, all right, let's break it down. You're going to want 3 of these, and this is why I do this that way and all that stuff. But hopefully we'll get there if we get a vaccine in the next 20 minutes.
Yeah, hopefully. And you mentioned your spiky hair. So I have to say that in just Googling you and looking up a bit more information about you to put together some questions, even though I have spoken with you before for point of inquiry, but looking you up, the first thing that comes up is Brian Brushwood's hair.
Yeah.
I have to say that's never come up for my Googling.
No, so I try to explain to people. I try to explain to people that they're genuinely in a pre-social media world. It was completely possible to come into a small town, let's say in, I don't know, Eastern Oklahoma or whatever, completely pack an audience with, say, 900 people, do the best show of your life, end with a legitimate standing ovation. And then a year later, somebody would see a magician and they would say, I saw a magician once. And they would say, oh, yeah, what was his name? They're like, I don't know. He did something with, I think there's a fire in a straitjacket. And then that's all they could hold on to, right? So,
Sure.
So the need for a gimmick or a hook, like, Penn and Teller, like Penn and Teller were very adroit in the 1980s, because you could always say, They were in suits. There was a big one and a small one, and everyone would be like, "You're talking about
a quiet one,
right? Yeah, exactly, right." With Chris Angel, you could say like, "Oh man, he had these abs," is what I remember. And then it's like, and everyone knows you're talking about Chris Angel or whatever. Literally any hook at all to hold on to that memory and have any chance of surviving. So
you were the first magic act outside of Canada to use a moose as a hook.
Hold on, let me get a pen. So in this case, I had like really long hippie hair for a while. I used to dye my hair green, but the more punk rock I would do my hair, the more conservatively I would dress to offset it, which just confused people, and they didn't seem to land. I personally had always dug video game imagery or whatever, and those crazy spikes, they were just Liberty spiky enough and also video game enough that every time I walked into a room in real life, when I walked into a room, people would smile and they're all like, what's going on here? Like this is a party. Unfortunately, once I get in front of a camera, I discovered that the same thing that is charming in real life is just loud and screaming on camera. And so once we started doing TV, I had to learn how to comb my hair like a dad.
Nice. So is that like this? That's like an Austin thing, you know, like you make Alex Jones in person. He's so charming and friendly, but on camera, he comes across really,
I ran into Alex Jones at the liquor store once. It was
oh my
really
God.
weird.
Was he all bright red? Was it a month after? Was it?
He walked up. He was like, excuse me. And then later I ran into him at the laser tag places. He was playing Fruit Ninja with his kids.
Wow. Wow.
It's weird to have grown up for 20 years where he's just a guy, you know, not a whatever the frothing monster persona that most people think of him as.
Yeah, it is weird. I'd love to have a chat with him sometime, but I probably I don't know.
Well, before he got super popular, my co-host on our comedy podcast, what we wanted to do was the definitive Alex Jones hour-long interview, and the only rule is we were only going to talk about Star Trek. like and then just from beginning to end, I bet it would be a fascinating discussion on there if he could, you know, steer clear of the crazy stuff.
Yeah. What a mess. All right, let's take it to something brighter. Yeah. So I don't know if you know that, like, you bumped into me in the sense that at Dragon Con one time you left a bunch of your stuff and I was the guy who found it, contacted you, and mailed it back to you.
Which
Forgotten.
was that after one of the stage shows or something?
Yeah, you had a table. Yeah, you had a table with a bunch of prop stuff.
That would have been one of the early ones.
Yeah, it was a while back. Well, in the glory days when skepticism seemed like it was going somewhere amazing.
Yeah. But Blake has been saying for years, Brian Brushwood
owes me a favor.
I do. Well,
here it is.
You're the show
cashing it
now.
in. No, it's good. No, I appreciate you coming on. This is great. So, but when you came to Kennesaw, not only did you do a magic act, but you also talked about skepticism, and you had a DVD at the time where you had to talk about Bigfoot and how you became
Sasquatch and scams.
Yeah, scams, Sasquatch, and the supernatural. Yeah. As a matter of fact, really all that is, and that's something that I had to get permission from Dr. Rory Coker, is I told him, look, all of these colleges, after I do my magic show, they say, what else do you got? And your class fundamentally transformed my life. I would love to, you know, obviously I can't take a whole semester's worth of stuff, but we could do a 90-minute greatest hits of all of the stuff from your class if you'll allow me to. And he was cool with it. And he appreciated the nonsensical kind of format, trying to add a little bit of humor in there. But yeah, that's one of the talks that I look forward to having an opportunity to get back to doing, because I mean, that was 15 minutes on spiritualism and divination. We learn about the ideomotor response, the importance of double-blind testing. We play games about figuring out which is the real, allegedly real or fake UFO photos. And we ended with the psychic surgery demonstration that later ended up being in the Penn and Teller Fool Us routine that I did. I'm really proud of how secretly, like, as hard as that show worked to look dumb, it was actually secretly pretty smart. And I'm glad you got to see that.
No, it was great. I think I saw earlier today, I was informed that, like, there was a thing about George Carlin trending where he's talking about the importance of critical thinking. And it's like, I don't care where you get your critical thinking skills. I mean, like, as long as you look, if they're brought to you through comedy, they're brought to you through magic, if they're brought to you through cryptozoology, as wherever you get them, I mean, it's absolutely applicable across such a broad spectrum of life. And I think that's what we've tried to sort of bring out in our show for a decade, is just having the ability to think critically and figure out what's real and what's not real. It doesn't mean you can't enjoy the mystery. It doesn't mean you can't enjoy magic. At some level, you need to be able to tell and discern what's real and what's not real, you know?
Yeah, that you can apply that to your life in general.
it's again, this is hard for a pre-internet generation or a post-internet generation to even conceive of. But there were performers who for 200 years would come into the local town or whatever. Like there's some radio show where Harry Blackstone Sr. is casually asked, like, well, can you make a elephant appear in this room right now? And he goes, yeah, of course I could. And then he goes on, like the performance never ended, whether you were on stage or off stage. It was important that you keep up the persona. And it's really like Darren Brown in the very early days of his career seemed to be more comfortable saying, oh, well, what I'm doing is I'm using all these psychological techniques to cause you to think of a thing or whatever. But then you could say that on stage, but then once the show's over and then somebody starts talking about like, hey, can you use that to help me release this anxiety for the whatever? Like then that's when you need to shut the hell up and you need to say, oh, no. I think you've confused me for a therapist. Here's somebody I trust.
Yes, the one of the clues that I was performing is I was on a stage, you see.
And I personally, I feel like the job of the magician is to play chess and to be very, very good at playing chess. So the moment you walk on stage, that is the arena and everything is fair game. The moment the show is over and you meet in person, you are no longer playing chess. And then you have to tell the truth. You don't have to tell the whole truth. You don't have to ruin how the tricks are done, but you need to stop pretending like that was you reading facial cues or what have you.
Right.
And to be honest, it gets me in trouble with is it the PEA is the Psychic Entertainers Association. They are a group that is very old school, where they believe that what we need to do is gather up all the secrets, keep them as secret as possible, share them only with each other, and then we'll fool everyone and make all the money. So which as I say that, economists would recognize that as something called a cartel. So they're literally a cartel.
Not a cartel, which is quite different.
That's correct. That's correct. So there's two ways to be the best chess player in town. One is you study all the book moves, you practice really hard every day, you learn everything that all of the great masters did, and you walk into the village and say, come on, let's play chess. Here's my money on the table. The other way to do it is to ensure that nobody in the village knows the rules of chess. And the PEA seemed to be more of that team, where they would love it if nobody knew the rules of anything. But I feel like that's not good for chess, and that's not good for entertainment. As a matter of fact, I point out that there was a time in the 1980s that magic and comedy, stand-up comedy, were held in roughly equal artistic regard. And that is not the case 40 years later.
Combining Star Trek and chess, would that be known as the Fizbin Gambit?
Yeah, yes, exactly. But the reason that that stand-up comedy is held in so much of a higher regard is because they got oversaturated. Everybody figured out they could play the game. They experienced a crash in the early 90s. They had to, then in the late 90s, you got your Chris Rocks and your social commentaries and that kind of stuff. And now, as a result, stand-up comedy is very highly regarded, and magic is not, because magic instead went the cartel route and overplayed their hand by doing essentially the exact same 12 effects over and over and over again with the same music, until finally it took the masked magician to say, knock it off, that's part of.
Am I misremembering it, or was that Jonathan Frakes narrating that? Did you just bring it back to Star Trek again?
No. Jonathan Frakes did Truth or Fiction. He did that.
Well, he did. Yeah. Who narrated the Mathematician?
The guy from the X-Files, Mitch Pileggi.
Oh, Mitch Pileggi, who did the revival of In Search of. Okay, got it. Okay,
that's right.
Cool.
And was in Shocker.
That's right. Wow. He was.
Man, we are nerds.
Yeah.
Monster
you
nerds.
Said it.
So at any rate, that's one one thing that I'm genuinely proud of with the legacy of both Scam School and Scam Nation is that is James Randi would debunk a lot of Uri Geller stuff by replicating the exact effect and then saying, well, I can't tell you how I did it, but now you've seen it replicated, so you know it can be done without magic. I feel like we are in a lucky environment in that, thanks to the internet, you can, like, it's one thing to be told this is a trick. It's another thing to be the one who has performed the trick. And then you recognize the beats of it. When I was 17 years old, we got swindled at the movie theater for like $50 in a short change scam. I had never heard of the short change before, but I understood the rhythms and patterns and the beats of how a magic trick worked. And it's like, it on a very visceral level, like, I'm like, this somehow is a magic trick. And it wasn't until after they left that we figured out like what was going on. So the more people doing magic, the happier I am. Plus, before the internet, magic, if you said the word magician, that was code for you were a white male and somebody of privilege who could afford $2,000 props. And nowadays, that's we now live, thanks to the internet, thanks to the ease of sharing, magic is more diverse, ethnically, socioeconomically, genetically, of all stripes than it's ever been in my life. And I'm super, super proud of being a part of that.
That's a good point. And we should check in with the chat room too, because Blake, have you been following that? Any questions for Brian coming through?
My lovely wife Kathleen has been actively participating, and she's right. She said in the chat that I married an awesome woman. Totally true. Very proud of that. I mean, we've been married for more than 20 years. Still have no idea what's going on. It's fantastic. So
keep it that way. So
yeah. Do you have go ahead? I mean, I don't. Yeah.
Oh, well, lots of questions. I'm another show of yours that I really loved was Hacking the System. So I mean, that was really cool. Do you think in future you might do some more episodes of that or something else? I mean, it is very similar to other things that you have done and are doing, but that was a really cool show.
Well, as a matter of fact, the Modern Rogue, which is what we're doing now, it's me and the same guy, Jason Murphy. Originally, we conceived of Hacking the System as what would Scam School look like if everything was cranked up to 11. We wouldn't just be scamming free drinks at the bar. We'd be stealing hot rods and blowing up houses and that kind of stuff. And so those were the ideas that we took to the network. And I'm, two specials and a full season later, it was, of course, thrilling and exhausting and exciting and all those things. But so much of television is just out of your control. You don't get to make every call that you would like to make. And then, so once they passed on a second season, there was a little bit of a, oh, thank God. and so it's like, okay, because one of the big problems that we had was we showed up with 100 ideas that we loved, and they're all like, too dangerous, no way, sponsors won't go for it, blah 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 blah. That's literally illegal. Nope. And so the show ended up, it's breezy and fun, and I'm very proud of it, but it didn't have the edge that we originally intended for it. So then where it's like, we seem to, by this point, we had taken over production for Scam School and Scam Nation. We were doing podcasts. It's like, we've got the equipment, we've got the tools, we got the talent. Let's just, let's do a spiritual successor with a bit more of a harder edge. And thus, the Modern Rogue was born. And boy, oh boy, people really like it. In just 3.5 years, we hit over 1 million subscribers. And so that was that was the second YouTube channel that we took past the golden play button, which is exciting.
I love the branding. I love it. It's just it's such a cool idea because it captures so many little ideas in Rogue. Like there's the Han Solo roguishness, and then there's the Dungeons and Dragons rogue, and then there's the sort of bar bro rogue. I mean, there's like all these different ways of thinking about it. Yeah.
But in fact, later this week, I'm doing a marketing class where we talk about how to build a brand and an audience online. And one of the things I point out is that a good brand means something very specific and also can be anything you want it to be. So Scam School was positioned as the only show dedicated to social engineering at the bar and on the street, which is very specific. It also literally could be anything you wanted it to be. We did an episode on street performers, or how to tell when somebody's lying, or, you know, we learned match tricks and magic tricks and how to memorize stuff faster. And but so it was very specific, but also whatever we wanted. Same thing with the Mono Rogue. The Mono Rogue is two guys who are on a quest to become the ultimate modern rogue, the perfect fusion of gentleman, warrior, scoundrel, which of course sounds very specific, but also means we could do literally anything we want. We can play Dungeons and Dragons and call that part of our quest of becoming the ultimate modern rogue.
That's fantastic.
I think that's what we try to do as well with Monster Talk. Again, it's something very specific, but over the years, our definition of monster has really broadened to the point where we're talking about people.
You could call it,
and they're monstrous personalities. Like,
it could be scope creep. It could be scope creep. But I mean, yeah, we're.
I mean, like, how quick did Mythbusters run out of myths to bust? I mean,
well,
it's like,
how quickly did Monster Quest turn into the same Bigfoot episode over and over again? Yeah. So I think we got into the psychology and the sociology, and there's so many
ghosts
aspects
and
to it.
psychics and
Absolutely.
other just anomalous phenomena and supernatural and occult. It's pretty broad.
So I'm going to ask a behind the scenes, pull the curtain back question you probably don't get asked very often. And that is not so much about how the magic.
That is, will you reveal your entire budget and
no,
how many
not at all.
contributed?
No, it's I think a significant part of a magic act is the narrative around the tricks. The tricks are the tricks, but the stories you tell around them over the course of a show, they need to tell a narrative arc. The most successful shows, they're kind of telling a story, and you're changing the name of your show, and you're including this and excluding that. How do you handle that part of it, the narrative process? Do you have a general narrative, and if you have to drop a piece or add a piece, you have some flexibility there, or is the act always the same? And is the narrative in service to the tricks, or are the tricks in service to the narrative?
That's a really good question. I would say that writing for a magic show is a bit like writing for a TV show, where when people write for a TV show, they'll just have a bunch of note cards, and it'll say kidnapped in a van, and then that'll be a note card that goes on the wall. Or another one, they'll say, levitating over the moon, and then that'll go in there or whatever, right? And so you write the vignette. Now, sometimes with magic, you also have the practical chess playing part that at the end of the routine, people have to feel fooled, or otherwise you're not doing a magic show, right? And there are different ways to do it. I know that if you see Penn and Teller's show, there's it's so fun to see what a weird collage mishmash of attitudes are in there, because there's Penn and Teller pieces where the two of them are working in concert. And then there are Penn pieces, and then there are Teller pieces. And Teller pieces tend to be completely standalone vignettes that are focused entirely on the magic. And Penn pieces tend to be thinly veiled excuses to essentially preach about something for about 3 to 5 minutes. And then and I love it. And likewise, for me, in some cases, it begins with learning how to do the thing and then figuring out, okay, what is the story that's here? Other times it's like, what's the story I want to tell? And what is a trick that I can happen to do along the way? Always it's a lot of massaging the I don't want to say massaging the facts, but it's like I will say this.
We have to be careful that people don't accuse you of misogyny.
Yes, correct. Whether you're David Copperfield or Penn and Teller, I will say that that the truth of the story is oftentimes secondary to the power of the story that you want to do. Like I believe in his stage show right now. He is probably dark right now, like most of Las Vegas. But David Copperfield casually tells the story, and then about a minute in, you realize he's telling the story of E.T., and then he reveals a puppet that's a goddamned alien and talks to the alien, like, and just all this with a straight face. And he's like, anyway, but when my dad worked at the grocery store, this happened and all that stuff. It's like, all right, we get it. The storytelling is flexible, you know?
Wow.
Well, we haven't got too much more time, but I wonder if you could tell us a little story. Now, I'm going to plug a book I wrote a few years ago now, and it's a collection of stories from skeptics and psychologists and people from our community who you wouldn't expect might have had some kind of paranormal experience. So it's Would You Believe It here? And Blake actually contributed to this book too. He's got a story in there.
What was your story, Blake?
I contributed a story about a haunting I experienced in the Middle East when I was in the Navy. And it turned out that pretty much every aspect of that story could be explained by natural explanations, most especially by sleep paralysis, which I had not heard of before. And it took me several years to find out about it. And when I did, it absolutely transformed my life, because I realized that what felt like absolutely a paranormal experience of a ghost attack was actually something just part of natural sleep cycles that some people have to experience.
It is so bizarre to experience sleep paralysis after you understand what it is, and to, instead of being terrified, like be all like, oh my God, it's happening. How cool.
I guess it's been about 6 months now since I've had it. Didn't happen for a decade almost. And then it happened again. And I had this for the first time ever. I had a hypnagogic illusion. I had a little shadow person came out of my closet or my clothes and like peeked out and then disappeared. And I was like, huh. Normally I'd be terrified, but that was pretty weird. I'm just going to go back to sleep now. And went back to sleep, but it was like, I woke up the next morning. I was like, wow, I need to write that down, because I mean, yes, I logically understood it. It still felt very weird and invasive, but I understood what happened, you know? And if I hadn't have known about this, if I had been educated about sleep paralysis, I would have assumed I had seen a supernatural event. It would have been extremely compelling. So,
it wasn't until college that I learned about number one, how malleable memories are over time, and number two, how prone to just full-on hallucinations children are. And let me tell you, once you have kids, like you understand, part of the reason the Satanic Panic blew up was because there was that idea of like, believe all children. It's like, no, don't believe children. They make up a lot of stuff.
I mean, listen to them, you know, give them sympathy.
Oh yeah.
But go investigate, you know.
Yes, exactly. So and it's one of those things where you can learn all of those facts independently, and months or years later, you apply them to a very clear memory in your mind, and then you just have this oh wait, I wonder if me? No. and so for me, I remember I guess 4 or 5 years old. The memory as it still perfectly remains in my mind is it's a very long time ago. It's the type of memory that had me during college times reading up on the idea of reincarnation and past lives or whatever, because it very clearly was before 1975 or 1980 or whatever. So like maybe the 1800s. But I remember these golden fields of grain. I remember throwing the ball with family at a farmhouse or whatever. And I remember looking at the sun, and then as though it was a movie trick, I remember seeing the frame pull out to an exact shot of that that happened to be, in the late 1970s, it was fashionable to have a lot of, like sunsetty looking, photographs. And that was what I was looking at. And I would go back to that moment and think, did my life end then? And that's when I entered this new vessel. Did seeing that take me back to a suppressed memory from a past life or whatever? And of course, whatever, it's a hallucination that a kid had, and a memory that got massaged over time. But it's so vivid. And I suppose that's part of the reason I have no fear of teaching. Like, if I could snap my fingers, this is one of the questions I've been asking magicians lately. If you had the Infinity Gauntlet and you could snap your fingers and cause everyone on the planet to know exactly as much about magic as you know, would you do it? And the vast majority of the answers are, oh, no, I'd be out of a job. Everyone would know. No. And then I say, okay, what if you could have that same glove and you could snap your fingers and suddenly nobody knew a single thing about magic except you? And then they would instantly say, oh, no, that would be totally immoral. Are you kidding me? That'd be awful. And it's like, so where do you set that dial? And no magician has an answer for that, or nobody has had one that has been any good. And so likewise, I personally would absolutely snap my fingers and cause everybody to know everything I know about false memories, about magic, about deception, about distraction, because just like a good visual illusion, knowing that it's being done to you doesn't make it any less amazing to look at. Like that new.
For Brian's next trick, he's going to freeze in place.
So yeah, not sure what's going on, but I guess we're going to be closing off soon anyway. Perhaps at this point we should talk about our YouTube channel. So thanks for watching the show tonight, and please do subscribe to this channel. We're putting out a lot of new videos every week. We're putting out videos. Matt is doing his photo analyses and video analyses with his Ask a Paranormal Investigator clips.
Could I add that at the $25 level at our Patreon support, you can unfreeze Brian Brushwood from his time lock, which is a great way
level.
We hope Brian comes back someday. Oh no!
Yeah, he may join us again.
Brian has teleported away. Sorry, Brian.
So please do like our videos and make comments as well, and tell your friends, share our videos.
Yep, absolutely.
And join our Patreon as well. I've got my own Patreon page again too. And
what's the URL for that, Karen?
I think I don't know the URL, but it's just Karen Stolzno. So my name, STOLLZZNOW. I've had that up for a little while now. For those Australians watching,
we should add Brian back to the feed, because now he's invisible. Yes. That's a great trick.
Here we go.
There he is.
Someone paid up.
So Brian is what's he doing? It looks like he's going to put in his headphones. He's putting in his headphones. This is very exciting for Brian's fantastic trick. Let's see what I'm interested to hear what he has to say. He needs to unmute. Don't forget to unmute, Brian.
Okay, there we go.
Yeah,
so again, former skeptic Brian Brushwood. We have to make that clear, because this podcast is definitely haunted. No,
I think you're talking about that past life that did it.
Yeah. So I wondered if it was a memory of a past life or whatever. But now I understand that there's I was conflating a hallucination with some massaged memories, and kids think weird stuff, but that doesn't keep it from being super vivid in my mind.
No, memories are weird.
Story.
Yeah. I mean, memories are definitely weird. I mean, there's dreams I've had that are as vivid as real things that I know happen. And when I was a kid, I used to have a recurring nightmare.
I do still. I have.
Do you really?
Dreams.
Oh no.
Not nightmares, recurring dreams about places that don't exist, and if you believed in past lives and reincarnation, you could easily push that to fit a theory.
It's funny how my recurring nightmare, and nightmare is too strong of a word, but my old nightmare used to be, because I was constantly on the road, constantly doing shows. And so you're constantly running down the checklist of all the things that you need to have ready to go or whatever. And so the nightmare was always the same. The crowd shows up, I walk out, fire eating goes fine. And then I realize that the human blockhead's not set. And then I realize that, oh, wait, no, everything is in boxes. And then I start to try to like, oh, just give me 1 second, and then start to set stuff up. And slowly everybody leaves. And then, and then one day I had a show that went so poorly, I thought, oh, I must be having that nightmare. And are you familiar with the trick to tell whether or not you're dreaming? You read something, you look away. And
Right.
then
Yeah.
And I literally did that on stage because I needed to verify whether or not I was
Wow.
And it was real. Oh,
having. It was an outdoor show at a community college. Stuff was blowing over and stuff wasn't set the way it was supposed to be.
but did they leave?
Some did, I'm sure.
Oh.
I wouldn't blame them.
Thank you for an unforgettable performance. I mean, not for you, for me, but still an unforgettable.
You might call it an unforgivable performance.
Well, we have, I think, a final question for you,
Sure.
which is a question we like to ask all of our guests, and that is, what is your favorite monster, Brian?
Ooh, that's a good one.
You can have two if you want, or
Hold on.
Do you need the monster manual? Would that be helpful?
I'm gonna give a sort of a nod to our other podcast, the Weird Things podcast, where we're fans of saying, like, we don't believe in Sasquatch, but we think he's awesome. And it is shocking. Like, for years, we delighted when every headline involved the word goblins. But then we found out that culturally, there are giant chunks of the country where goblin is just a catch-all racist term for.
Oh no!
Yeah.
No, as a fan of 1970s horror music soundtracks, I can't abide by that. So
yeah, so I want to let's bring back classic goblins is what I want to say. That's my vote. the jaunty dudes stealing gold.
Yeah, like the level 1 safe encounter kind of a goblin,
right?
Yeah,
like goblins and kobolds, and let's keep
absolutely.
it PG.
So that's really funny, and also very old school. So fantastic. Well, thank you for joining us for this show.
Thank you very much. It was lots of fun.
It was a non-trivial exercise.
We did it though, man. Look, what's the point of blowing up the Death Star if you don't get to high five at the end of it?
That's right.
Here we go.
So just like at the end of Star Wars, this is a great opportunity for Han Solo to talk about where they can find his stuff.
That's right. Or for me to accidentally call. Did you ever notice or hear about how in the moment Luke Skywalker is he's so lost in excitement, he calls Princess Leia, he shouts Carrie, Carrie Fisher's real name. So if you go back and watch that and the stormtrooper bonking his head is great. Hey man, you can see all my projects at shwood.com. That's SHWOOD. That's the very last part of Brian Brushwood. There is no C in Shwood. There'll be links to all that stuff, but it seems like most people tend to be, if you want to learn some magic, check out youtube.com/scam school. And if you want to see us be a even lower budget Mythbuster ripoff, check out The Modern Rogue.
Cool. And you can find us at patreon.com/MonsterTalk, monstertalk.org, and at Karen's Patreon, which is patreon.com/something.
Karen Stolzner.
There you go. Boom. Nailed it. So I don't have a personal one myself, but I appreciate you watching, and we thank you very much.
Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. See you next week.
This was great, guys. Thank you so much for having me.
So, engineer, can you roll the credits?
Look at the credits, they're rolling by during this is a normal song, it's not copyrighted. Take that, Nat.
A giant hairy creature, part ape, part man.
In Loch Ness, a 24-mile-long bottomless lake in the Highlands of Scotland. It's a creature known as the Loch Ness Monster.
Monster Talk.